There you go. 4-punch, 5-punch, 6-punch combination. Body shot, bang, 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 bang.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
Boom! Will Rackman get up?
Iron. You're going through all the instructions. This is for the championship of the world. I expect a tough, clean fight. Protect yourself at all times. Any questions from the challenger?
Welcome back to the Fight City podcast. This is your host, Alden Kodash, and I'm going to be joined by Jeff Fuss. How are you this morning, Jeff?
Oh, I'm great. How about you, Alden?
I'm doing pretty well. I think Ryan Garcia is doing better, and especially his fans. Social media is just on fire, isn't it?
The last time I saw was last night after the fight. Apparently, he was trending for 2 hours on Twitter.
Jesus. Yeah, so Ryan Garcia, he gets a career-defining, so far, victory over Luke Campbell, stops him in 7 rounds, knocks him out for the full count in round 7, gets up from a knockdown to do it. What was your impression of his performance?
I have to say, I feel there was a lot of split feelings on this fight. I felt it was a good step-up fight for him. I thought maybe he bit off a little bit more than he could chew, but obviously he proved me wrong. He won the fight, dropped him in impressive fashion, especially with that the way he was looking at Campbell right before he threw that hook, aiming for the head.
He fooled me.
Yeah,
I put myself in Campbell's shoes, and I was like, would I have put my arm to the body? I don't think so. I mean,
I know. Yeah, it shows that he's definitely learning from the Reynoso camp and Canelo how to feint, even and with his eyes, the way he was able to pull that off with just looking at Campbell and then throwing to the body. I was like, that is such master class right there. And as we can see, Campbell's definitely feeling it today. Yeah,
I could tell. He took a horrendous body shot, one of the better liver shot knockouts I've seen in recent years. But really, what I liked about this fight is just any crossroads fight like this, when you really take this big first step up, is it shows where exactly the fighter is in their development. It shows their strengths and their weaknesses. Because that's what these fights are supposed to do. Obviously, the strengths we knew coming in, and we saw it developed or demonstrated on a world-class stage, the hand speed, the punching power. But we also learned a lot about his heart and determination from getting up off the canvas. And like you mentioned, how much he's learned since he's teamed up with the Reynoso brothers, since unimpressive performances against the likes of Carlos Morales and even Jason Velez years back.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, as a young fighter, I mean, he's a young kid, obviously has a huge social media following. He's still coachable. He still has so much to learn. There were a few things, like, for example, with the knockdown that Campbell scored, the way he pulls his head back and he threw out his arm straight. It reminded me of Amir Khan when he fought Canelo. But, I mean, obviously that was...
It reminded me of Hatim Rockman against Lennox Lewis. The second fight. People, it's a bad habit just to put your arms out when a guy is throwing and assuming that's just going to stop the attack, but it clearly didn't in this case.
Yeah, I mean, but still, kudos to Ryan Garcia. He got up off the canvas, had to recoup for 2 rounds, and then was able to score such a devastating. I mean, just a beautiful, picture-perfect punch to the liver. Yeah. And I mean, just watching the ripple effect that it took through Campbell's body, and that Campbell was definitely down on his hands and knees, and I was like, he's not getting up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Campbell's an extremely developed amateur, gold medalist in the 2012 Olympic Games, I believe. But he did bring out some of the weaknesses so far in Garcia. I mean, we saw what we've seen before. He's flat-footed, for better or for worse. He doesn't fully know how to capitalize on his height yet. And one of the glaring defensive weaknesses he's shown is his main defensive mean is pulling straight back, whether or not that's with his torso or a half step back. It doesn't work every time. Sometimes his height's enough to help him get out of trouble, but sometimes he gets clocked.
For anyone who's trying to eye a fight with Ryan Garcia, they're obviously paying attention to those, I don't want to call them flaws, but in short, they are, right? There's something that he can train to do different next time. But him calling out like Gervonta Tank Davis, for example, if I was Tank Davis, personally, I'd be like, yeah, let's do this. That seems like a good fight for Tank Davis. I mean, Luke Campbell, I don't know if it was just me, but at least the first 2 rounds, at least the first round, it seemed like Campbell didn't want to take the fight to Garcia. He seemed a little bit reluctant. I didn't know if he was already going into the fight definitely respecting Garcia's speed and power.
They're both counterpunchers in their own right. They're both counterpunchers, and it was hard for either one of them to really take up the slack there.
Gotcha. Because with seeing Garcia putting Campbell on the back foot early on, I was thinking the opposite. I thought Campbell at first was going to start off putting a little bit more pressure on Garcia, but also Campbell doesn't have an impressive knockout record. According to BoxRec, he has a 66% knockout ratio. Mm-hmm. So I was curious to see, was Garcia, thinking he's not, if anything, he might put me on the canvas like we saw, but he's not going to knock me out.
Yeah. He took quite a big shot. It was clearly something he didn't see coming. Campbell is very slick in that he put his head in a position and put his hand in another position and just played with Garcia's eyes. Really never saw the punch coming. But out of the young lions, Tank's name that clearly resonated the most with the crowd. Devin Haney, Garcia is now his mandatory for his paper title, his WBC email title. Which fight would you like to see the most?
And I don't know if this is going off the unbeaten path, but I kind of want to see a legitimate fight with Garcia and Rolly, the Romero kid. That they have footage of them sparring in the Mayweather gym, but they're both professionals. And I think if the money's right, why not take that fight? However, if that case is not possible, probably the Devin Haney bout. That's the one I'm leaning more towards.
Yeah, I like to, at that point, he would, on paper, have a little more stake. Garcia, if he won that fight, he'd have a title to put up to the negotiating table. Devin Haney's last couple of performances haven't been so impressive, at least to the level of Garcia and Tank Davis and Teofimo Lopez. Those level performances really outshine Devin Haney against Gamboa and against the fighter that he fought on the Logan Paul undercard a year ago. Devin Haney, I've seen him extremely impressive in the past, but his star is kind of not shining to the level of some of his compadres right now.
No, and I think that's a fair assessment. I guess for just to keep Devin Haney in the mix, I want to see, I think he's a great talent. Obviously, as many other people, some other people might view him as underrated. But to keep him in this mix, I mean, this division has so much young talent. I'd hate for Devin Haney to end up like kind of like a Bubu Andrade, just kind of thrown out there. I was like, oh yeah, there's that guy. Yeah, he's still around. He kind of holds the title, but no one really cares to watch him fight. But let's see what he is like up against. I guess obviously a stud like Ryan Garcia. I'm curious to see how, is he going to be able, does he have the punch tolerance to take the speed and the power shot from a kid like Ryan Garcia?
And really quick, before we move on to the Ioka Tanaka fight, do you think Garcia would have any chance against Teofimo Lopez?
I'm not seeing it. What about you?
It's tough to see. Both fighters have defensive vulnerabilities, but I still think Garcia is still a little bit more of a diamond in the rough. But he surely is shining, and he is a diamond, and I think he has tremendous amount of talent. In some regards, obviously less developed than De La Hoya was, but there are some similarities to De La Hoya, and that left hook is just so fast, and the way he puts away smaller opponents at 135. This guy has a lot of upside, but I do want to see him managed correctly, and I think, like you mentioned, Devin Haney is a better matchup for him than Teofimo Lopez would be, probably even Tank Davis, who might knock him into next week, quite frankly.
I've been seeing some talk that, and Davis has flaws himself, like with the Leo Santa Cruz fight, he did take some punishment, right, considering whatever that may be from Leo Santa Cruz. But it makes me wonder, did Tank Davis going into the fight thinking, well, he's not going to knock me out? Would he look different against Ryan Garcia? That is something that I'm intrigued to see if it ever happens.
Oh, it'd be a great fight. Given what I saw from Garcia and some of his defensive lapses and hitting the canvas against Campbell, I just see it as somewhat of an inevitability that Tank's power is going to get there and might overwhelm him. But yeah, it would be an interesting fight. Any of these fights would be great to watch. Speaking of great fights to watch, let's turn our focus now to the 115-pound division. On New Year's Eve, we saw Kazuto Ioka with an highly impressive knockout of Kosei Tanaka, who is going up in weight to try to become a 4-division world champion like Ioka is. Waking up at 4 a.m. Eastern time, I think this was worth every drowsy minute at work later that day, just given how impressive Ioka was. Scored 2 knockdowns. Really just a brilliant showcase.
I have to say, I'm impressed with your dedication to wake up at that time to watch this fight, because I, like many probably other fans, just waited to watch it later. But yeah, I think that was it was fun to watch. And there's something that is so admirable about Japanese pugilists, the sharpness of working to the body, the way they're able to stand center of the ring. You'd think at one point that these two men possibly had their front feet tied together. And the efficiency that these two were throwing with their punches to the body, to the head, mixing it up. Tanaka, being the smaller man, took the fight to Ioka. And just kept walking him down. But then also, obviously, as we could tell by the end of the fight, you could see some of the wear and tear on both of their faces.
Yeah, Tanaka, despite the 2 knockdowns, it never changed his approach. He kept coming, bringing the fight to Ioka, even though it began to look foolish as Ioka was tearing him apart. But hell of a heart from Kosei Tanaka. We've seen some very gutsy performances from him in the past, particularly against Sho Kimura. Tremendous talent. Might be biting off a little bit more than he can chew at 115, but he's surely still one of the best little fighters in the game. I mean, he's a 3-division world champion. Ioka is a 4-division world champion. People might overlook the significance of that when they think of how narrow these weight divisions are from one another. I mean, we got 112 to 115, 108 to 112, 105 to 108, but proportionally that means a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an American thing, at least being on this side of the Pacific, but when we're looking at these boxers at these smaller weight divisions, maybe Americans just view everything bigger is better, kind of like Texas, right? But I'm always shocked and awed whenever I catch any fight within those divisions, the tenacity that the fighters show. It's like they never get tired. And 2, the amount of punishment they're willing to take. Yeah. And 3, the effectiveness of their punches.
No, absolutely. These are 2 supremely conditioned athletes, 2 of the best in the game. And normally a performance like Ioka turned in, would render him as universally regarded as the man at the division. However, I think it really speaks to the power of 115 pounds. After a performance like that, we still got guys like Estrada, Jerwin Ancajas, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, and Srisaket Swarangvisai, who are still live dogs against Ioka, and some of which would be probably toss-up matches, given just the talent that they bring to the division.
With 2021's boxing schedule, I would really love to see, if it is possible, obviously, Juan Francisco Estrada and Roman Gonzalez, they'll meet again later, this year in March.
Yep, in March, yeah.
Does Srisaket, I'm sorry, Swarangvisai, Srisaket, does he have an opponent as of yet?
He does not, as I've seen. He's had a couple non-title fights last year. Obviously, he lost his title against Estrada. I hope he's the same fighter. I really do, because when he knocked out Gonzalez and he beat Estrada on points, he looked like he was just steamrolling the division. He was just so powerful, just so strong physically. It just seemed like he wasn't destroying guys like Estrada and Gonzalez in the first fight, but he was just overpowering them and just walking through a lot of their punishment. Right now, after the second fight with Estrada, I think he's a little more vulnerable. I'm not sure if he's showing his age or his wear and tear from his career, but he's it's kind of a big question mark with him, whether or not he's still the same fighter he was in 2018, 2017. But we'll see. He doesn't have a title, but he's still highly ranked in several sanctioning bodies, and I think he'd be a tremendous fight for any of these guys.
I think just the round robin effect that we could have with these, we got Estrada, Chocolatito, Rungvisai. You already mentioned Jerwin Ancajas, the Filipino. Yep. And Ioka. How are we not getting just a round robin fight?
I think we will. I really think we will. I think it's inevitable with the lack of really strong promotional ties that these guys have. I mean, Eddie Hearn is starting to take more notice, obviously, of Estrada and Chocolatito, and putting that fight on showcasing a DAZN card. But it's not like these guys are the cash cows for any of their promotional companies, and their hunger to establish their legacy speak louder than their hunger to increase their bottom lines, it seems. And I think that's why we're getting these fights so frequently. I think the winner of Estrada and Chocolatito, or I really just hope, fights a guy like Kazuto Ioka sooner than later. Or if not, fights Jerwin Ancajas, or Ancajas fights Ioka, or Sorong Visay is thrown in the mix somewhere. Because these are the fights that, it's going to bring out the best in this division. Hell, I've seen some requests for a World Boxing Super Series of 115 pounds, and I think everyone could stand behind that.
I literally was just about to say that. We need the World Boxing Super Series to come in. Just go ahead, take it. Because I know as an American fan, I would love to see a little bit more showcase and more love for these smaller guys.
Yeah.
Especially with this elite level of talent.
Yeah, everybody's got to see this. I mean, I get so frustrated when I see anything about like Logan Paul and the Paul brothers or whatever, and people just overlooking what these guys bring to the table. These guys are not only supremely talented, but they fight each other very regularly and bring out the best in each other. I really want to see Ancajas brought more to the center stage. I think he's kind of been taken away from some of the mainstream spotlight of the division. He's kind of almost been sheltered by Top Rank, it seems, or on some of the ESPN cards. He hasn't really fought any of the top level opponents at 115. But he's also a very talented fighter, tall southpaw. There's so many good fights that we could make in this division, and I think we're going to see them a lot quicker than we will any other round robin that the public is demanding.
I also have to say, I just love the fact that if you were to ask me, just purely from, and I'm not a betting man, but like, all right, Juan Francisco Estrada in there with Ioka, who takes it? I'm going to say I don't know, and that goes for like any of these guys faced in a tournament. I don't know. It's a toss up.
Yeah, no, it's. I think out of Estrada, Chocolatito. I think Chocolatito's starting to show his age a little more. I think Estrada will win the rematch. But Estrada also, he's he's not as fresh as he was in 2012 either. I mean, he struggled pretty hard against Carlos Cuadras, got dropped, and struggled to pull out a victory in a tremendous fight, probably the fight of the year last year if I had to pick. But a lot of these guys are showing wear and tear, which really bolsters the point that we should see these fights sooner than later before these guys drift off or just don't have what we thought they did, like a Sorong Visay.
It's a shame that these smaller divisions aren't being used as the model for, the heavier divisions. If I were to speak specifically of maybe the 147-pound weight division, right? We're not looking at, like you said earlier, the bottom line. They're chasing legacy, but these fights are being made, and they're facing the best of the best. They're not sitting there, they're not saying, we should let this marinate.
Not at all. I mean, these guys are fighting each other very frequently, and Kazuto Ioka, he really, really made a strong statement for himself. I mean, I knew he was one of the best at 115. I think everybody else that was doubtful of that has seen that as well. He took out Kosei Tanaka in the 8th round. Tremendous performance. And yeah, I really, really hope that we see some great unification fights. There's just some great matchups coming up in 2021. But 2021 got off to a really good start. Ryan Garcia with the 7th round knockout, riveting body shot of Luke Campbell. Couldn't ask for a better start to the year. Couldn't ask for a better start to Ryan Garcia's legacy going into this year. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I expect a tough, clean fight. Protect yourself at all times. Any questions from the challenger?